I've seen worse.
Okay, hit it.
I can see
Spark, spark, spark. Beautiful.
Hi guys, welcome to Big Life. I'm Little Jay. Welcome to part 2 of my son's 1969 Jeepster Commando that we're fixing up for his first car. Today we're going to do kind of an engine revival, like Vice Grip Garage or Junkyard Digs would do to get a car started and drive it out of its grave. If I get this engine running today, it's not to get it road ready, it's to see that I have a good engine. This engine's going to be getting ignition and repairs and quite possibly even a throttle body injection added to it. This is just to see that I got a good engine to start with. You know, this whole truck's going to need a cleaning bumper to bumper. And if I don't need to pull this engine, I'm not going to. But if I'm going to be having to swap the engine, I'd rather pull the engine before I clean the engine compartment out. So today we're just going to be checking for spark, checking for fuel, make sure that we don't have any weird noises in the bottom end, like a spun bearing or a bad connecting rod, and no noises in the top end, no problems with the lifters, stuck valves, things like that. We're going to make sure this engine actually runs well enough to be salvageable. So let's talk a little bit about the Dauntless V6 because it has a cool history.
The Dauntless started out life as a Buick Fireball V6 in the 1962 Buick Special. It was an odd fire engine because it was essentially a 215 V8 with 2 cylinders chopped off and converted to cast iron. If you don't know, an odd fire means that it alternates firing at 90 and 150 degrees of crank rotation instead of every 120 degrees like most 6-cylinder engines. They actually have a pretty distinctive trademark sound that Jeep fans love. It was a good engine, especially after they increased it to 235 cubies, but it wasn't great for the muscle cars that were all the rage in the 60s, so Buick shelved it and sold the tooling and design to Kaiser in 1965. Kaiser added a bigger flywheel, gave it the name Dauntless, and started using it in the CJ5 and CJ6 in 1966, then in the Jeepster Commando when it was added to the lineup in 1967. I think some military Jeeps might have used it before that too, but don't quote me on that. In the civilian market, it was an instant hit because Jeeps are so much smaller than the muscle cars of the time, and they could make good use of its real tall and flat power curve that it made. AMC bought Jeep from Kaiser in 1970 and made changes to the front of the CJ and Commando for 1972. They made the hoods longer, and they actually made the Commando look like an international truck in the front to make room for a straight 6 and a V8. The problem is that this reduced off-road visibility in the front, and people hated the new look of the Commando. The straight 6 also made less power than the Dauntless, so I kind of questioned that decision, but AMC was pretty invested in their straight 6. Sales dropped sharply, and in 1973, the Commando died. But that wasn't the end of the Dauntless. With the oil crisis and new emission standards, Buick actually bought the Dauntless back. They added solid state, HEI ignition, and a few other refinements. There are great bolt-ons to the earlier Dauntless engines. They fit with no modification. It was converted to even fire in 1977 and later from a 90-degree design to a 60-degree design. The engine mounts were also moved at some point so that they could fit in front-wheel drive cars. The name was changed during this time, and it was referred to as the 3800 and used in a lot of GM vehicles. The 3800 was in the 1979 Pontiac Le Mans that my parents owned and a 1994 Buick Skylark that I owned. They were pretty different from the early Dauntless, but they both share DNA with the Dauntless, which brings history full circle and makes my son the 3rd generation of my family to own one.
So first things first, you can see 2 of the tires went flat. Although I think the bigger surprise is that 2 of the tires held air, but it nearly took out one of the poles on my daddy's carport here. So just to get it good and level and we know what we're working with and things are predictable on the carburetor float, stuff like that, I'm gonna get this side up on jack stands and get it leveled out. Still got a tow strap here. I'm getting it on and off the trailer. Let's get that out of the way. Ow. I hope my jack goes high enough. I may have to get a block in there. Go drag that ramp out of there. No, he took the ramp out. And this, kids, is why we buy aluminum jacks and not the cheap cast iron or whatever they're made of. Jack's in the way. No likey. Even though we're doing engine work today, we're gonna get our first good look at the underside. Okay, we definitely have rusted out floors. Yeah, but I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the internet. Yeah, we got a lot of holes in the floor pan. I don't know if this is gonna be worth trying to patch. We may have to just buy a whole new tub, which is not cheap, but I can get over it. The exhaust is pretty rusty. Interestingly, we seem to have dual exhaust. And both manifolds, no, one manifold's come out the front of the engine, one's coming off the back. See, that one there is coming off to the back. This one comes off the front. A little bit odd. We seem to have an oil leak around the plug. Maybe it's just not tight. Or maybe it is. But we got fresh oil right here, and we got oil stains all over the place here. So I think the pan is also leaking. Just the fresher oil is right here on the pan. Transmission is leaking from its spill plug. But you know, I'd like to put a T15 in here to make it a little more streetable and modern. We actually have a parking brake that does not look too swell. Man, I do not like the looks of the tub. But the chassis is solid. It's got mainly surface rust. Looks like it might have been painted or undercoated at some point. But that's just surface rust. It's not rusted through. It's solid. Very solid. Dual exhaust on a V6, huh? I wonder if that was a factory option. We have a telescoping drive shaft. So, well, Jeeps have always been formidable. We seem to have quite a bit of oil or grease or something on the shift linkage here. We also have tie wraps on a shifter cable. Got some vines that need to be removed. Okay, I've seen worse engines. Oh, when the tub rusted out in the back, somebody first fixed it with a piece of plywood and then pounded that diamond plate. There is no floor back there, nothing, it's gone. There's the broken shock mount I mentioned in the last video. These drum brakes are definitely going to go away. And this telltale sign right here means that we have a busted cylinder anyway. Same thing on that side. Also, I can't get the hubs to turn, so I guess the hubs are seized up. I don't see oil on those drums, but you know what? Or fluid on those drums. But you know what? There's no fluid in the master cylinder. It looks like trash in there. And there's no way that belt there is ever going to tighten up, because there's no pulley on the alternator. That doesn't look like the filter I bought. I hope I bought the right filter. Actually, I think that's the wrong filter. Yeah, that filter, look at it, we got exposed gasket right there. That's the wrong filter. And my lens is hazing up because it's the wee hours of the morning and extremely humid. Radiator hose, not terrible. Radiator does not look like there's been any obvious sign of a leak. The fuel pump looks new. I do know that the guy was using this using gravity feed. That's why there's a fuel tank on the top. But he kind of laughingly said, when I replaced the fuel pump, it sure ran better. So I guess that's the new fuel pump he put on it. Big surprise, a truck that's meant to run on a fuel pump runs better than when you've got it on gravity feed. I don't know what to expect from this starter. I do know that I should have brought a lone wolf kit for starting under the hood, because we don't have a key and the ignition is trashed. We're gonna have to hot wire the whole rig. We have a random bungee cord bumping the microphone, sorry about that. More weeds growing up into it. Starter looks actually not terrible. God, I hope it works, because we're not gonna get far today without it. And there's your transfer case shifter. Doesn't look terrible. And the drain plug on the transfer case is also leaking. I'd kind of like to put an NP204 in here, but I don't know how much use the full-time system would actually get, so that may not be worth the money. NP204 isn't the most durable, but it should hold up to a rig this size just fine, and an engine that size. We're gonna need new body mounts. Those body mounts ain't good for nothing. Those are hopeless. All right, let's get under the hood and take a look. So you've seen me throw the hood a few times. So we know that the hood actually opens, it even has a working latch. So, pretty complete looking system. I know nothing about this particular engine, besides the fact that I did put a wrench on the crank bolt, and I made a few revolutions around without hearing or feeling anything weird about it, and it felt like it had good compression. Radiator looks, again, like I said, reasonable condition. We have coolant, fresh coolant. We'll see if it actually moves when we get the thermostat open, assuming it's not stuck. There's some crud on the channels, but I'm pretty sure this radiator is going to get replaced anyway. Alternator, wouldn't count on it. No idea what that carburetor looks like. Pretty confident that it's not seized. It's free. I'm also pretty confident we do not have a working accelerator pump in there. Although it is good to see that there doesn't seem to be leakage on this valve cover. You can't really see the valve cover seal too well there, but I can see it well enough to see that there's no oil pulled up or old oil there. But here we have mud daubers. Yeah, see the valve cover gaskets look good. We actually have a solidly connected ground and a decent ground lug and a long wire and a much less confidence-inspiring positive lug. But it's connected where it's supposed to be. Going to the alternator. Oh, we're kind of loose on the alternator there. Not that it matters. And that nut could be cross-threaded. Again, doesn't matter. This alternator is a waste. And this one does seem to go to the starter solenoid. So we'll just rig a hot wire from the solenoid to the battery to crank on it since we don't have a key. The electrical, scary. Don't know what any of this used to be. We may be buying a whole new harness for this rig. That's to be determined. Right now, I'm interested in getting power to the starter and the ignition coil. Speaking of the ignition coil, this is kind of funny. What are you doing right here? That's kind of odd, with a wire nut going to the distributor. And we have a wire coming from the ignition switch and another wire nut. Okay, so we may be doing better by this. But my goal is to put HEI on here, so I hope this ignition coil works well enough to get us started today. Let's have a look down its gullet. This air cleaner is not sure what it was doing. I know, I'll put my feet out here on the chassis. Well, at least we don't have rodents or insects. Open up. Oh, we have dual Venturi, so I guess it is a 2-barrel. I thought this was a single barrel. But the Venturis look clean. I will probably do some tapping on the side of the bowl to make sure the needle valve is not stuck when you first go cranking on it. And I've got a breather there to fill the carb with when we're ready. And somebody at some point did at least try to fix the vacuum advance on the distributor. This is a pretty new little vacuum hose going to the carb. I hope one of these fuel filters is good because I didn't bring one. Yeah, wiring's horrible, so we're going to be doing a smell test first thing when we put the battery on and watch for smoke. Let's get started. I guess we'll start by checking for spark. I'm kind of an idiot. We're going to start by checking out the oil. Sadly, that's not much of an option. Normally, I would just pull the dipstick, take a look at the oil, smell it, make sure there's no sign of water, milkiness, no smell of gasoline. I'm definitely not going to taste it, Derek. But since I have no way of checking out this oil, knowing what kind of condition it's in or what's in it, I'm going to have to drain the oil pan before I even know if I have a good engine and put fresh oil in it. That's sad because that'll be a waste of money on that oil. And I'm thinking I'll pull a couple of spark plugs too, at a minimum to check for ignition, but also to see what it looks like in there and see how it's been running. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, the plan here is to catch some oil in this little pan so I can take a look at it. And then we'll get the rest into my oil drain pan. Yep, let's take a look and see how it looks. At least we know the whole thing's going to be in freedom units. Not going to be struggling between metric and freedom units.
I don't know what happened.
Oh my gosh. This oil is full of gasoline. Just to smell it. Lots of gasoline in that oil. Well, let's go inspect the oil for sparkles. Carefully drag that little pan out here so we can get a better look at it in the light. Don't spill it in the grass, it'll kill your pawpaw's grass. Well, black, like it went a long time without being changed. Real watery, and it smells like gas. There's no smell-o-vision here. No viscosity left of that. Then again, I'm not getting metal, and anything that came out of the bottom right where I took the plug out is where the metal would have been. And this appears to be a magnet, and there's nothing on it. Let me see if I can get this oil filter off. Or you think I should have Zen get the oil filter off? Probably gonna be hard. Come on, you gotta learn. Climb up here, stand on there. The future owner of this Jeep is gonna get the oil filter off. Right here, you see that?
Oh, jeez.
That's the oil filter. And it's probably gonna be over tightened. So you're gonna have to get 2 hands on there and squeeze hard and crank hard. If we have to, we'll drive a screwdriver through it, but I'd like to take a look at it and see what the condition of the oil inside of it is. You're gonna have to lay on your gut and put 2 hands in there. I don't think it's gonna be loose enough to do that.
No. How I'm gonna lay on my gut, there's no space to.
Right there, put your belly right there and lean down in. Welcome to working on cars, son.
Yes.
There you go, that's how you do it. I think your pawpaw's checking to see if he has an oil filter wrench. There are wrenches they make for when these things are too tight.
That is too tight.
All right, you want the old man to take a swing at it?
Okay.
All right, here, stand there and hold that. I'm gonna reach down in there. Just keep the filter on the lens. Be looking through this, don't look past it. That way you know it's lined up right.
I'm trying to
Ah! I don't really care to be putting a new filter on an engine that we don't even know if we're gonna save. We're gonna try to, but that oil has got me very upset. If I can get past this radiator hose, I bet people have been cussing this radiator hose for 50 years whenever they need to change the oil. All right, let me get underneath and see if I can get a bite. I got it loose.
I can only see the camera.
Now that the old man loosened it for you, reach down in there and spin that guy off. You can either drop it into the oil pan or lift it up here if you can, but it's gonna lose a lot of oil. Gonna wanna fall, be ready to catch it.
Shoot. That's my bad.
That's okay. Well, again, no sparkles, but oh my gosh. Oh, I think there's more gasoline than there is oil.
That's not oil, then.
Oh, it's oil. It's just had gasoline getting into it. No, the filter's rusty. It's old. Pro Tech, I guess. It's too rusty to read. Not confidence inspiring. Let's put the plug back in. And you know, the new filter is definitely smaller than that. I get the feeling this was the wrong filter. I would normally go with a name brand filter like Wix or K&N. But for the purposes of this, I got the cheapest one they had. They were out of stock of the Fram trash, so I got some other kind of trash.
It doesn't look the same.
It does to me. See the sealing surface there? See, the filter body itself is bigger. Let's see how it spins on. Since this filter is definitely different, but the mating surface looks the same, we're gonna spin this guy on, make sure it's a good match. Then we'll clean things up and put a layer of oil on there. Yeah, I think that's gonna seal.
That goes.
Make sure we got a good clean mating surface here. No crud in there, looks good. We get into our fresh bottle of Rotella. Sort of fresh bottle of Rotella.
Sort of fresh.
Well, it's a brand new bottle. And we're gonna put us a little coat right here. That helps it seal up better, helps the gasket stay fresh. Spin this filter on. And Zane is getting himself a funnel. All right, never over tighten these. If this was gonna stay on here, I would write mileage and date on it for future reference. Although I hope you keep better records than that, but if you lose your records or don't keep good records, you know, because it's written on the filter. All right, and while he is getting a funnel and putting fresh oil in it, I'm gonna start pulling a few plugs to see how they look. No more reason to keep this oil, let's dump that out. Ugh, that is terrible oil. It was never changed, that's for sure. It could be that this engine has a really small amount of blow-by and just never had the oil change, so it got full of gas. Racing cars, especially forced induction racing cars, one of the reasons they need oil changes so often is that forced induction forces so much fuel past the cylinders, even though they're freshly built engines. And the oil looks like this. Well, let's see if whoever over-tightened those, that oil filter also over-tightened spark plugs. Let's start with number 1 here. Let's see if somebody over-tightened the, oh, it's okay.
It's not.
It's coming right out. Somebody under-tightened it. A little sooty.
That's not bad.
Yeah. It's running as rich as a Saudi prince. I mean, I'm willing to use these. I may be able to get my money back on that. But let's see if we can crank it over and get a spark. See how the ignition system is. Let me do a little bit of wiring magic. And see if we can get a hit on the starter. We'll just kiss it a couple times and see if it cranks.
Oh, is this on?
Yeah, it's going to be a cam, so it won't turn far. That's it. Yeah, you were doing it right. Now these wires are long enough. I guess we can just set the battery right here when we're ready to, because it sure ain't going to fit in there. The wiring to the starter looks okay. The wiring to the alternator doesn't, but I'm not going to count on this alternator for anything. So we're going to do some wiring magic since we don't know the status of the electrical in here and we don't have an ignition key.
I mean, this is bound to happen.
So here's the wire coming from the ignition to the distributor. So we're going to run that directly to the battery. And since we got a wire nut, I guess we can just cheat it like they did. This is some scary stuff. God, I can't believe this Jeep was going down the road like this. And I guess if I was smart, I'd put a multimeter on that ignition coil. I'm just gonna see if it works like this. That is so... Somebody janked this thing together. Oh, we're a little crusty in there. Yeah, we may need to clean that up a little bit if we don't get some spark from it. Before I do too much wiring, I think I'm going to put the battery on and see if anything smokes, catches on fire, or just plain stinks. I'll take the battery back off and get the hot wire in it. All right, we have some wire here. That was used to hang horse thieves in the 19th century. All right, come here, Zane. Lesson time. Now I'm checking the ignition system, make sure we got spark. Remember, we need spark as one of those 3 things that make fire. Normally, this wire right here is sending electricity from the ignition switch in there.
Yes.
We don't have keys. We don't know what kind of condition any of the wiring in here is. Normally, you'd have 12 volts coming from this. The battery to the wiring in the system through here. We don't know what we're going to get from this. We don't know if we're going to get anything from this. So what I'm doing is bypassing all of that. That would normally connect to the ignition coil right here.
Yeah, I can see where it's cut off.
All right, so what I'm going to do to bypass all this, we're going to run a wire here. It's going to go over to the battery. So we're just going to send 12 volts directly through it without sending it through any kind of switch, so that we know we got power going to the coil. Now, the starter, there's an electric motor that starts the car. Remember I told you the battery's main job is just to start the car. Everything else runs on the alternator?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have an alternator. So we're going to be running on the battery today. That's why it's over there on the charger. And that's not even a long-term use battery. It's just what we're using for the moment. Since that battery's job is just to start the car, see this real heavy wire right here coming from the battery post?
Yeah.
That goes to the starter. But you can't just put a switch on the starter, because the power going from the battery to the starter is too great. So you use what's called a solenoid. And that solenoid is otherwise known as a relay, where you can send a small amount of electricity to the solenoid. And that solenoid has a switch in it. It's like a giant light switch. So when you send a small amount of electricity to the solenoid closes and allows the large amount of electricity to go to the starter. Crank it. Some cars have the solenoid up here. Easy to get to, easy to work on, easy to tinker with, easy to replace if you need to. Some cars have the solenoid on the starter. So I'm gonna have to get under there and get a wire onto the solenoid down there. All right, before I connect these wires to anything, we're gonna put the battery on and do a smoke test. Maybe I should clean up this lug a little. It ain't pretty. Let me see if I can improve this before I put it on the battery. This is our ignition coil, the white one, and the brown one is the starter. Oh, this is terrible. I'm gonna take the alternator wire off. It's not doing anything. Just a chance for a short. Oh, the nut's coming right off, good. All right, there's our alternator wire. This is your negative battery terminal. This truck is what's called a negative ground. Almost all cars are negative ground, meaning the negative side of the battery is connected to the chassis and the body of the truck, and then you run your positive all over the car. That way, when you go to put power to something, you only have to run a wire from the positive side somewhere to that electric device. The negative side of the electric device, you just connect to the chassis wherever you need to, and you've got the negative. That's called chassis ground. That way you don't have to run two wires for everything. This one, you see how the wire's all frayed and tore up and weak? You're not gonna get a good electrical connection with that. And I don't know where this white one is going. Somewhere to the ignition on the inside. So we're just gonna ignore this white one. We're gonna take it out, and we're just gonna use the red one that's going to the starter. So all we care about right now is starting the engine. You got any battery lugs? Just broke off the battery lug. Yeah, I'm still not 100% confident in this connection, but you know, it's something for now. We're gonna pretend it's good. All right, now, when you're putting a battery on a rotten old car like this, first thing you do is tap it a couple times, see if you get sparks. That'll let you know if there's anything in there drawing power. There shouldn't be, because I don't have this going to anything but the starter. All right. I wasn't expecting smoke or sparks or fire because I've got pretty much everything disconnected here except for the starter. All right, let's give the starter a hit. See if we get anything out of it. All clear. Nothing. Nope, that is definitely not good. Let's go ahead and make sure we got decent battery connections here. Now what we want to see from this battery is more like 13 volts and some change. If we've got 12 or above, we're really golden. If we've got 11, we'll have to live with it, it'll be okay. Let's take a look. 12.8, 12.9, that's good. Now let's, we're gonna check and make sure we get good connections. So I'm gonna start by finding a ground. So we're gonna put the positive here, and we'll check a ground somewhere in there and see if we got ground. Anything metal? That's metal. It's painted, so we'll have to scratch through it. Oh no! Yeah. We got good ground, that's for sure. It might just be a bad starter or a bad solenoid. I'm gonna go put the meter on the lug on the solenoid. And I need somebody to touch this here, and I'll see if I'm getting power. There's so much rust under here, I don't know where I'm gonna get a decent ground. All right, we got power coming to the solenoid from the battery. Yeah, let's check out and see if we got power coming to that little wire I added. Touch it. Oh yeah, we got voltage coming to the solenoid. Solenoid's probably bad. Maybe the whole starter's bad. Well, let me tap on the solenoid and see if it frees up. Hand me that hammer. All right, just tap the wire on it a couple times, Zane, real lightly. I'm not even getting the slightest click. Put it on there and hold it. We're gonna disconnect the battery, take the starter out because I got a hot wire coming to the starter here. Bombs away! Uh-oh, we still got something hooked up here. What are you? Oh, don't tell me I had that hooked up to the wrong side of the solenoid. Why does the solenoid have two lugs on it? Okay. see if the solenoid does anything. Apparently this solenoid also engages the Bendix. I have never seen a starter engage the Bendix when you put power to the solenoid. That is a new one on me. Here we go. We're just gonna try for a quick hit.
I liked that sound.
That's a good sound. All right, let's spin it over a few times, see if there's any kind of noise in the valve train or bad bearings at the bottom or anything. And then we'll try for spark. It sounds good. Here we go. Nope, I don't think we got spark. But let's see if we got power coming out of the coil. So to do that, Zane, come here, look. See, I got the voltage coming in right here to the coil. All right. This is where the high voltage comes out. And once that voltage is real high, you got to have these special wires. So what I'm going to do now is put this somewhere close to a ground.
Those are rubber.
They actually have a carbon conductor in the middle. So what we're going to do, we're going to put this somewhere close to a ground and see if we get a spark between this and that ground as I'm cranking it. Ready?
Yeah.
Because I can't see it, that fuel filter is right in my way. Nothing from the coil. I'm going to check the voltage at the coil just to make sure that I got something there. Okay, that's okay. Since we are having ignition problems anyway, there's no harm in taking that cap off, see how the rotor and cap look. Make sure the points are okay. At least this distributor is easy to reach. Interesting that this Jeep is from the Kaiser days, but it's got a Chrysler style cap. They look great. Button nice and clean. Connections, no pitting, no dirt, no corrosion. This cap looks healthy, healthy. Okay, we're missing a screw on the rotor. This rotor's held on by a couple of screws and one of them's missing.
That's not good.
Well, most rotors don't even have a screw in them. They use screws, so we're gonna let it cheat for right now, but we will be doing better than that when we work on it. Oh, there's no springs on the Advance. And these points don't look new, but they look okay. Watch the points, make sure they're open and closing like they should. They're opening and closing? Good. Oh, maybe those points don't look as good as I thought they did. This is wrong. There should be springs on here. It advances the timing as it spins faster. Let's make sure that distributor's tight so our timing doesn't get messed up. Oh yeah, it is. Oh boy. Not good. Ignition coil is very hot. I hope it's just because it's been in the sun. Coil is bad, it's shorted. Well, it's 3 or 4 days later, or 5. We had to stop early the other day because reasons. One of those reasons is because the coil turned out to be bad. It was shorted across the primary. So we are going to work on getting a temporary ignition system wired up again today. I've opened up my borescope today, so we're going to pull all the plugs, look in the cylinders, and see how the pistons and the cylinder walls and everything look. So let's jump on it, get started. Go! Watch out, we're going to spin over. Okay. Well, let's pull these plugs out. Take a look in here. And then check the compression. Start with number 1. Wow, these plugs look terrible. I've got new plugs, I may just put them in. Gee. I mean, they're not completely awful. They generally look like a healthy running engine, but they got a lot of carbon on them. The engine hasn't been serviced. Not too terrible inside the cylinder here, at least not inside number 1. Right, give it a crank. $150. Yeah, see, it looks good. $150. Some scoring on the cylinder wall. About 145. We got 120, 150, 145, 140, 150, 150. That's good compression all the way around. And next we're going to try and get the ignition. I don't think we got spark. Let's go ahead and check the points again. Okay, we do not have points now. No. That should be blinking. We gotta take the points out clean. Oh man. We're gonna have to do something better about this rotor too. See, there's a little set screw here holding the rotor on.
Mm-hmm. Oh. There's supposed to be 2, one on either side.
And there's supposed to be machine threads in there. Or I could just, like drop the screwdriver or something. Not like I need it. The points don't look terrible, but they also don't look great. The inside of the cap looks really good. If you look, there's bits of plastic broken off right there and right there. See this oval shaped thing here that's alongside the metal tab? There's supposed to be another one on the other side. It's missing. So this piece of metal on the rotor can swivel. It's not supposed to. And it might get pushed away and not be touching the cap when it's supposed to be. No, they're just staying closed. Crank it again. Points are not opening and closing. Well, there's an adjuster. Okay, try it now. There we go. Now it's opening and closing. I don't know about this rotor. I'm afraid it's going to hit the cap and just swing the thing aside. Perfect. Sparking.
Yeah, can you hear?
Yes!
I think that's right here, sparking.
Do it over here for the camera to see. Okay, hit it.
I can see
Spark, spark, spark! Beautiful! Okay, give it a crank. Spark, spark.
Look out! What do you know? Ha ha! It hit! We got a runner here! We got a runner! Okay, let's...
Happy
Let
progression.
me try filling up the bowl and see if it'll... I don't know what's in the bowl. Ignition is... Ignition's on. Okay, hit it. Right there. Pretty ugly exhaust leak on this side. Exhaust leak. I think he's hitting it off there. And the bowl was empty. Nice. Yeah, that's going to be a good runner. Whew! That was harder than I would have liked. But we have a good engine. That engine's got great compression, and now we know the internals are good, no bad sounds. I don't even care about the exhaust leak I heard. We're going to be putting a whole new exhaust on the engine, so I can replace a manifold gasket if I have to. That engine's ready to go. And I'm already doing the research on what transmission, transfer case, bell housing, clutch combination I need to use. So, we've got a good running engine. We'll see you in the next step, which is probably going to be to get that corrugated galvanized roof off of there and that save nobody in a crash roll bar off of it. That's going to improve its looks by 1,000,000 times. So how'd you like the headache of us getting it running? I haven't done many long form videos, so I appreciate it if you're still hanging in here. Drop a comment below. Tell me how you like the process of getting going or what you think of it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share with any Jeep fans. And until next time, I'm Little J. And remember, life is a gift, so make it big.